So today we start on exercise 223, which is not quite a nighttime rendering. We're getting there, but we're going to switch and do an interior daytime rendering. So the assumption would be that you've already installed your HDRI background imagery, you already have your sun set, and you're basically ready to go because you did an exterior daytime rendering already. We're just switching our view to be on the inside. So I'm going to walk through putting the lights in and kind of installing it and setting up that view. The lighting will not be as dramatic, and I will add more lights when we get to the nighttime rendering for the interior. But we're shifting focus to be the inside rather than the outside. The truth is that you'll have a fair amount of time today to work on continuing your modeling, etc. And I, at the request of students in the past, for some reason people would like to know how to do pools. And how to render out pools. So for the first time, I'm actually going to show you how to render out a pool. I did a quick little test render to make sure everything that I did worked, and we'll see if we can pull it up. So there's a little pool at the end of this walkway here. And I'll show you how to do that, how to create the water for the pool and that sort of thing. Even though that's an exterior thing, I figured I'd show it to you today because I have plenty of time to talk about stuff. Because mostly what we're doing is just setting up a nice view for the interior. So I've gone ahead and I've opened up both my master site file, so this is the file that has the whole site in it, and in a separate instance of Rhino, I have the base building that I will bring in. I'm going to install all of the light fixtures on the building, right? Then I will put the lights in on the master site layer. Remember, all the actual Vray lights occur at the final site level. So we'll go to our first base building here and have a look. And so before I get too far into this, if I'm going to do an interior daytime render, I want to sort out what's the right view to be looking at. Well, you know, where do I want to be inside? And so this is a little bit of review, but we want to think through the camera positioning, the camera angles, and all that sort of thing. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll try to set up a view somewhere inside that I think would be interesting. Okay? So let's see, you know, maybe something like this, looking at the stairs could be kind of interesting. Perhaps a view that would be downstairs, you know, maybe looking through those windows out, that would be okay. So as I start to get these views set up, let's say I do this view for right now, I want to fine-tune this view a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little triangle up here and say show. Under set camera, say show camera, which remember gives me in the other views, right, my camera point there, and also gives me a target and that sort of thing. So I'm going to start manipulating the camera using these points. I do want to make sure that my view is set. Right now my lens length was at 28 because it was an outside. If we're doing an interior, we're probably going to go even wider, so maybe an 18, which is going to show us much more of the room. Which is a good idea in this context. Okay, I also am going to make a few adjustments. So let me zoom in on the top view. I do want to make sure that, of course, the camera is inside the building, right? So we'll throw it inside the building here. Yeah, about like that is not bad. And my target happens to be pretty good. I don't, however, know how far it is off the floor just yet. It actually doesn't seem too bad, but I can adjust that in here. So let me do move. And we will move this. And again, these are all rough. Okay, right there it's at the floor level. Let me move it up. I don't know, we'll do 5'8" to get it at about eye level. Oops. Like that. And then we've got that view showing up here in render 2. So do you see how I'm working with the multiple views and using the control point? Then I'll go ahead and save this view. So let me go to set view, named views. You see I already have a couple interior renderings. I'll go ahead and save as, and we'll call this interior render 3. I didn't put any spaces in this, and this will help you to get in that habit long term for when we cut sections of the building. So it doesn't really matter, but it's something to get in the habit of. So I'll go ahead and call this interior render 03, and I'll go through the same process again and maybe set up a view that's up over, you know, kind of in this stairway looking out through those, because that could be kind of a nice view setup. So now that I have that in position, I'll go ahead and manipulate with these points. Let's move this a little bit closer that. And let's go ahead and check our height of this. So once again, I'll move this, be approximately at floor level. Then we'll move it up at about that level. It's looking a little bit looking out in that direction. Let's move this back a bit like that, and maybe we'll move the target. Let's drag this. Oops, that was not what I wanted. Sorry, that was the one I wanted. Move that around a little bit like that. Once I get the view set up the way I want it, I'll go ahead and save this view as well. So I'll go to Set View, Named Views, and we'll call this Interior Render 04. And I'll go ahead and save. So I'll say OK. OK, and I just realized that I set these views in the wrong file. So we'll have to do this again. I won't make you watch me do this. Those views should have been set up in the master site, because that's where the ultimate rendering is going to happen. So my mistake, right? They don't come through, so I'll have to reset those up in the master site. But it's OK. Let me go back to my views here. Same process would happen for those. OK, so now that I have my view set, we can hide this. So let me go to Set Camera. We're going to turn off Show Camera. It's not there anymore. OK, so now that I have those, I need to start thinking about what's the furniture going to look like? What are some added details? I see some of the models already are starting to have these kinds of things. I have a few generic pieces of furniture that I've put in already. One is a little day bed. I've dropped that into the scene. I'll do a couple others. Let me go ahead and put some chairs kind of in this back area over here. Maybe a couple chairs right in here. Let me go ahead and go to Edit, Blocks, Insert Block Instance. Now I found these chairs on the Flying Architecture website, which has a great collection. If you go to 3D models, you can look at furniture. Some of them are paid furniture pieces, some of them are free. Obviously, you don't have to pay for anything for this class. Because this is your final project, there's no reason not to look through, find something that fits, something that looks good, and put it in. Okay? Because it's not about having to create everything from scratch. Obviously, you could create these kinds of things if you wanted to. Some are better than others. Like this pillow probably could use a little bit of work. Okay? But a lot of them are free, and you can use those as well. So anyway, you could scroll through. You can see what works. I've already downloaded a few, and I have them ready. I do recommend, before you actually insert them, go ahead and open them in a separate Rhino file and make sure that they look good. Make sure that their layers are set. Make sure their scale is set correct, those kinds of things. So let me go ahead and find one of those. I keep them, by the way, in my resources folder. I have a folder called Rhino Blocks, and I have a folder called Furniture, and then I can open up the individual pieces of furniture. So there's this one. It's a little chair. If we wanted to see it in its rendered form, there is what it looks like. If I look at my layers, I have a default layer, and I have an O1 layer. Okay, I'd like to organize those a little bit better. Let's create a master layer for the Yuki chair. And then let's make this a sublayer and this a sublayer. So again, I'm trying to organize a little bit. I could also rename default to be like maybe 02 or something. Okay, so I have those two assigned. Obviously, the materials should load. So I'll go to Materials. Let's make sure that Chrome looks like Chrome. It does. Let's make sure that the leather looks like leather. Let's make sure that the steel looks like steel. The reason that I'm double checking these is if they used a special material and it wasn't assigned correctly, it would turn out just as gray, and that would be a problem long term. So I make sure that everything's set the way it should be. And then I'll go ahead and save this file. And once it's saved, we'll go to the retreat base, and I'll go ahead and bring in that file. So let me go here to my resources folder, into Rhino Blocks, Furniture, and there's the chair. And we'll go ahead and drop this in. I'll say OK, and I'll say OK, and we can drop it into the scene. It helps to find something to snap it to, so I'm snapping it to that corner for right now, even though it's outside of the building. Let's go ahead and move this in here. Maybe we'll rotate it a bit. Turn off ortho for a second. Right? And so I have that little chair in the corner. Maybe I want a second one. I could mirror this and have a second chair placed in there. Okay? So I've just dropped a little bit of furniture. It adds a little bit of character. When we're dealing with these kind of high-end renderings, it's not a bad thing to put in these extra elements. Okay? So there's a few chairs. Maybe I'll put another little couch in or something, depending. This is not the largest building in the world, so I can't put too much furniture in, but you get the idea, certainly. So now that I have those in, now it's time to start thinking about lighting in these rooms. Okay? So let's go ahead, and I'm currently working in this interior render. Let's think about putting a light inside of this. So last class, if we remember, I created a can light, and I'll start with the basic can light, and it was that, oops, let's see here. Come on, Rhino. It was that basic 4-inch can light. There it is from last class. It was that one. Okay, so I created that last class. I'll just go ahead and use that one. So let me go, and again, before I do anything, I make sure that everything's working correctly. There's the 4-inch can light with the trim and the bulb. The bulb is that emissive material. Important to have that. Let's go ahead and go to the retreat base. Here it is, and I'm going to put that geometry into this scene. So I'll go to Edit, Blocks, Insert Block Instance, and this time I'm going to browse for the light that I made last class. So that was what, 222? There it is. Oops. I'll say OK. I'll say OK. Remember, I want to make sure it's a linked file that's referenced. I'll say OK. And it's going to let me drop it in. So in this case, I'm going to snap it to that upper corner up on the ceiling right there. Okay? So let's go ahead and move it out. Obviously, it doesn't need to be in that position. And so I'll do this in the top view. It'll make life a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and move this. And let me turn on ortho. And we'll move it out so maybe it's 2 feet from the wall. And then we'll move it over so it's maybe 2 feet there. Okay. Then maybe I want to copy this. And actually, let's mirror this across the center of this room. There's a second one. Okay, if we look at it, there it is. Let's take both of these and let's mirror them this way in the room. So we end up with a second set there. And then maybe we'll copy these and place them in between. Something like that. So now I have 6 lights in this little room, okay, that are shining down. So that's great, but remember, I don't want to add the actual Vray lights in this file. This is just the geometry. So I'll go ahead and save this. So File, Save. And I'm going to move over to the master site file, this file. And I'm going to go to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager. And I should see that the retreat base is new. So we'll go ahead and update it. And when the materials dialog box pops up in a second, I want to make sure that I update all the materials. Okay, that makes sure you have the newest materials. There we go. Oh, it didn't ask me, so we must be OK. So we'll go ahead and close this. And if I were to look at this in wireframe mode, right, we'd see that, yep, my lights are there, which is exactly what I wanted. So now it's time to go ahead and install a Vray light. And before I do that, I want to actually create a layer for lighting. So let me create a new layer, and I'm going to call this Lights. This is separate from the site environment layer. I like to keep it separate so I know where my lights go. So we'll do Lights, and then sometimes it's helpful to to designate these are lights in a specific room, so it's easy to choose which room's lights you're adjusting. So in this case, it's going to be the kitchen can lights. I'll make that the active layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the Vray toolbar up here and create a spotlight for the first light. So go up here, and I'm going to snap it right there to the center of this light. My diameter, so I'll type D for diameter, is going to be 2 feet. My height is going to be 1 foot, and I'll do that in my side view here, 1 foot. It's going to want to snap to something, so make sure it's not snapping to anything. There it is. Remember, I have to make sure that this light is below where the object is, so it's not contained within any object. So it's like that. Okay? Now, the logical thing would be, okay, well, let me go through and create all of them. Okay, but it's more steps to edit the light multiple times. So I'm going to edit the light first, make sure the properties work. Then I'm going to do a test render and make sure that the test render light works. Then I'll do the copies. Okay? So I'm going to move back into this view. Let me go ahead and look at the view in shaded mode so I can see it a little bit better. Go. And let's switch my view so that it is an 18, a little wider. Let's get in here and have a look. All right, so there is my light. We'll come over to my light properties. It should be enabled. The color, just like last time, is 255, 214, and 170. I'll say OK. We want my units to be in watts, radiant power. And we'll set this, I don't know, maybe for 60. My decay is going to be inverse square. And I do confirm that there are numbers here, which is good. And so now that I'm done making that edit, we're going to go ahead and do a quick test render. Now, before I do a high-quality render, I'm going to go into my options and make sure that this is small. All right, so maybe I'll go even smaller, maybe 400 there. Right, so it's 400 by 182. It's a pretty small little render. I just want to make sure it works. Right, and so I'll go ahead and click the render button. And we don't even have to let the render finish all the way. We can see that the emissive material is working and I have a spotlight shining on the wall, which was my goal. Okay? So now I can go ahead and copy this light to all of the other locations. Right? So I'll take this spotlight and I'll go ahead and mirror it. Remember, I did the mirror last time right there. Now I could take these two spotlights and I can mirror them. I'll go back into my top view here. To right there. And then I could take these two and I'll just copy them and I'll move them until they line up to those. Okay, so now I have the 6 lights that are in this room. We can go back to my exterior, or this view here, which I should save as an interior view. And we can do another quick small rendering and make sure that all of our lights are working. It is possible, even if you have one working light and you copy that working light, at some point in the process you might get a dead light. Okay? It happens. It's unlikely if you're copying from a starting point. Okay, so based on, before it's even finished, I can see the arcs on the walls. It looks like all of my lights are working, which is the goal. Okay? So this is an interior daytime rendering. This particular room is kind of a cave, so this is not any different than it would look at night. Let's go ahead and switch my view out of this space into a space that would be looking out. So let's go down into this lower space here. And as I said before, I made a mistake last time and set up my views in the wrong file. So let me go ahead and reset that. So let me go to, make this small. Let's go to Set Camera, Show Camera. And now I should see it in all our views. There we go. You take that control point, and I'm going to move it so that's right in the corner of the room. Then I want to adjust the height and make sure the height is set right. So I'm going to work in my front view here. We'll move this down. To the ground level. There, and then we'll move it vertically. Oh, excuse me, just a regular move. And I don't know, we'll do something like that. Oops, there. And there we've set the height of the camera to the correct location. Okay, so this looks decent. I'm okay. I'm seeing a little bit of funniness going on outside, so I might have to shift my view a little bit. Right, so maybe I'll spin the room a little bit that way and see if we can get it set up. Okay, so once this is set the way I want it to, obviously I have to start putting in those lights. So once again, I'll go, let's see, this time I'll put a floor lamp in. Okay, so I'll go to my edit menu, I'll go to blocks, insert block instance. This time I'm going to pick from my, excuse me, this is in the first file. I need to save this, and let me save the view, and then go back. Yeah. Name views. I'm going to call this interior 2. Interior 2. Save. Okay, so the view's saved. That's good. Back to my retreat base. It's right here. And this is where we're going to install the geometry for the light. So we'll come right down here, and it's going to show up in this room. Spin around here a little bit. All right, so it's going to show up in this room. Let me go ahead and drop that in. I'll go to, edit, block, insert block instance. And this time we'll drop in my floor lamp. Go ahead and say OK. And I'll go ahead and say OK again. OK, it's a linked referenced file. And we'll drop it right to maybe that corner right there. Now I need to move it around. So I'll work in the top view. Let's move it. And let's move it right over to that corner. OK, now that it's in place, something like that. And by the way, let me take the daybed. It was on the upper floor. Let's copy it down to the lower floor. Don't want it floating. Let's get it all the way down to the actual floor. There. Let's get it a little closer to the wall. There we go. OK, so I have the daybed and I have a little lamp in this particular view. I need to install the point light into this light. So let's look right at the center there. And I'm going to create a point light this time. So let's go to the point light. We'll snap it right to the center of this light fixture. There it is. Let's edit our properties. So with it selected, I come over. We'll start with the color, 255, 214, 170. We want it to be in watts, and we'll set that at maybe 60. Inverse square is already set. So all of that's good, but I want it to go down. So let's move this. Oops. V for vertical. Let's go -8 inches so that it's at the center of that little light. OK, so then I'll go ahead and save this. No, I put the light in the wrong file. Clearly today is just not my day, right? So let me go ahead and save this. We have to put the light in the other file. It wouldn't come through anyway. Let me go to my master site. Let's update. So I'll go to blocks, block manager. We'll update. And there they came in the way they were supposed to. OK, so now that that came in correctly, let's go to my layers. under my lights, I'm going to create a new sublayer. This is going to be, let's call it live lamp. We'll make that active, and let's put that point light in. So I'll go ahead and create the point light. Snap it right there to the center. We'll adjust the properties. Color first, 255, 214, 170, 60 watts, inverse square, all of that's good. Let's go ahead and move this. Move, V for vertical, -8 inches. There it is. Let's go back to my set view interior render 2. There's my view, and we'll go ahead and do a render and see how it turns out. So again, I'll make sure that under options, output, I have a small size first, and then I'll go ahead and do a quick little test render. Oh, I forgot to change the lampshade from being purple, so we'll have to fix that. Okay, but if we look here, right, at this image, you can already see through the windows, we're seeing the sky and stuff outside, and the light inside is fairly dim, right? So this is where lights matter. And if you guys are looking at it there, you can see over on this wall, I have a piece of art hanging, but it's almost totally dark. Okay, so this is where I need more lights coming down so that not only are we getting the bright light outside with the sun coming through, right, onto my floor, but we need the interior lights to supplement. So I'm going to make sure that I add a few more lights and or increase the intensity. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a little bit more geometry. I'll switch back to my retreat base. Here it is. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this little piece. Actually, let's copy that little one, because we can copy it right from the corner, right from there, and we can drop it down into that right there. Let me select it. We'll look at it in the top view. There it is. Let's mirror it a couple times. We'll mirror there. I'll select both of these. We'll mirror that way, and now we have 4 lights in the room, right? We may find that I need more lights, but I'll start with just those 4. Okay, so the geometry's here. We'll go ahead and save the geometry. We'll go back to my master site, and we'll update my block. Perfect. You see there's my lights. Okay, now we need the actual lights. And so the good news is they already exist in this file. There they are. Let's go ahead and just copy these. Oops, let me start with this one. It'll make life a little easier. Go ahead and copy that. Again, right from the corner of the room, I hope. Right from there. We'll dive down into this view. Sorry, that was the upstairs, not the downstairs. And we'll put that first light in. I'm going to go ahead and try to zoom selected and see if I can get a little bit better results here. Okay, there we go. So I'll take the spotlight. Let's go into my top view, make our life easy. I'll go ahead and mirror this. First one is that way. Select them both, mirror, and we'll go that way as well. Okay, so now I have those 4 spots, and I have the little point light, which which needs to be inside my light fixture. And I'm noticing right now that my light fixture is actually partly cut off by the wall, so I have to go back and adjust that as well. Go ahead and save. Let's go back to my set view, interior render. There it is. I've got those lights all installed, and we'll go ahead and do another test render this time. So you can already see that there's a lot more light inside the space, which is the idea. So we're supplementing the daytime rendering with these lights. And that's really the point of doing this and the reason we start here. We will take this file and ultimately go into night mode where outside is dark, and then we'll do the interior rendering as well. But since we already have the day set up, it's a perfect time to do the day setting. All right, so now we see that we have some interior lights and we're starting to get good arcs on the floor and on the walls, etc. Remember, if you wanted the arcs to be a little bit higher on the walls, you could adjust the shape of the spotlight so that it would end up being a little bit higher as you started doing your lighting. So a couple other things that may be of interest. You see that I've put art on the walls, right? A lot of times the art on the walls helps the building feel good. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to do the little pool, because a lot of people like to do fountains and pools and those kinds of things. So I'll show you both of those in just a second, and then I'll let you guys go and start your modeling. So let me go back to my retreat base here for just a second. And now that I'm back in my retreat base, I want to talk about how to do these wall hangings. Okay, so number one, they're pretty easy. You're doing it as a combination of two things. One, you have to create the geometry to hold the picture, and then two, you have to create the V-Ray material that has the picture in it. Okay? So I'll start with creating the geometry. So let's create this one from scratch. Okay? So I want to put something on this wall. I'll start by creating just a box corner to corner. If we start somewhere close to the wall, it's usually helpful. So there, we'll start right there at the wall. And we need to start by creating a box. And I'm snapping all over the place. So let me just, for right now, I'm going to turn off my object snap. And I'll create something. Okay, this is not the right scale just yet, but I'll use scale 1D to start to make those adjustments. So I'll say that the thickness from here to here, if it was a canvas, might be, you know, like 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Something like that. And then I can say my scale 1D in this direction, I don't know, let's do it maybe 4 feet. And then we'll do a height of maybe 4 feet as well. 4 feet. Something like that. Okay, so now I've created the canvas, what's going to hold the art. Let's go ahead and move it up. Type V for vertical. And I've already established over here what the vertical height is, so I just want it to match this. And then we want to move it over on the wall. So we could move it maybe from the midpoint to match up. Oh, come on. Let's just move it this way. Move. Turn off my object snap. And we'll just place it right there. Okay? So I've set up the geometry for the scene right there. Now I need to make a material that works on this scene. So if I switch to rendered mode, we can see that nothing's really, you know, it doesn't look spectacular just yet. I need a material that's on this. So I'll go to my materials, and I'm going to create a new art material. Now, I have in your flash drive a bunch of art materials that have already been created. You can load those and then change the picture, but in my case, I'll create one from scratch for you. So let me just right-click on Scene Materials, Create Material Standard, and I'll call this Art 5, and then eventually I'll name it something, right? But for right now, we'll just leave it like that. Okay, so now I need whatever the art needs to be. So here comes our good old internet searching, right? And so maybe I want a let's do a Creative Commons search, search.creativecommons.org Let's look at Flickr and let's say beach. And see what comes out. Let's do beach in black and white. There we go. And so we'll pick something that looks interesting to us. Okay, maybe this one looks good. Right, how romantic, right? So then I'll go ahead and I'll download this image. So we'll download the original size. I need to show it in the folder. There it is. Let's go ahead and copy this. And I'll put it, for right now, I'm going to put it into today's folder. So let me go into my live demonstrations, and we'll put it into today's 223. And I'll go ahead and I'll paste this right there. Now when I go back to my base file here, there's my art5, and we'll call this now art5 romantic, for lack of something better. And up here at the top, under the color, I'm going to choose the little M next to color, and I'm going to choose a text bitmap, and we'll go find that file. So once again, I'll go to my live demonstrations, into today's folder. There it is. We'll go ahead and say open. If we preview it, we should see the preview. There it is. We'll say OK. And now I want that art5 to be applied to this object. So I'll right-click, say Apply Material to Selection. It should be applied to that. We can see it showing up there. If we don't like the positioning, remember, we can go through our texture mapping and make our adjustments. Right? So in this case, let's provide a planar mapping of it. And then we'll say bounding box, world, EVW. That was not what I wanted. Go back and do that one more time. Bounding box, world, let's do UV. No, it's still being annoying. Let's see. That's because it's applying the plane down on the image rather than vertically. So let me make some adjustments. I've shown the mapping. Go ahead and rotate 3D. Turn on my snaps. We want it to be up in that direction. Obviously, it's repeating too many times, so let's scale 1D. Move it up to the top. And we'll scale 1D and move it down to the bottom. Like that. It's obviously, it's on its side, so I need one more rotate. 3D. And let's take it along. Turn on ortho. Come on. Right along that edge. There. There. And now it's in the correct orientation. Okay, so I adjusted that mapping. The reason that I did a planar mapping is I want the sides to just appear to be stretched on either side. Okay, so now that's set up. We can go ahead and hide the mapping. I have my image. We can go back to my, let's save this file. And then we'll go back to the master site. And I'll go ahead and go to Edit Blocks, Block Manager. There's my linked file, and we'll go ahead and update it. OK, so now it's updated. We can go ahead and look, and I'll just switch to rendered mode. And when we switch to rendered mode, we see there's the art picture at the end. So you see I was able to take something. So a lot of times people like to use their own drawings or their own paintings or whatever and throw them into the scene. It's kind of fun. Okay? So that's how you would install a custom photograph or a custom piece of art or something along those lines. So today's goal is to create the interior rendering. Okay? I did promise that I'd spend a little bit of time showing you how to do a pool outside just for the fun of it. Okay? So what I will do, rather than than you watching me create the geometry from scratch. I'll walk you through the geometry that I already created. Okay? So I decided to add a pool, as ridiculous as it is, floating off this edge. Okay? So I need to create several things for this to work. Okay? The first thing, and I'll go back to my, my base file here. And let me switch it into shaded mode for just a second. So the first thing is, obviously, I needed the geometry that would hold the pool in the first place. So I needed a wall that extended from my base here that went out and over and around there. Okay, so those three walls are relatively obvious. The texture mapping on this had to match the texture mapping on the existing wall so that it would appear like a seamless concrete wall. Make sense so far? Okay. So once I have those, and I'm going to go ahead and take these three and just hide them, then I had to create the pool itself. Okay. Well, this is very much the same. Let me hide this for a second too. This is very much the same process as it would be if you were creating a pillow. Okay. Could I do square edges? Sure. A true pool is always going to have the arced bottoms. So in order to make it accurate when it renders out, I went ahead and I did it that way. So what I did was I created two relatively simple curves. Right? The first one goes from the center here, down, slopes, goes down to the deep end of the pool, arcs, and comes back up. Okay? The second one is for the cross-section curve that goes down this side and then back up over here. I wanted to make sure that the resulting surface didn't intersect with the existing over here, so that's why it kind of bends out a little bit funny, okay, which is fine. Then I did a curve that goes right along here at the top, and this one goes over straight to 90, over straight to 90, and back over to here. I have the opposite curve on this side, if I can select it. There it is, right there. So that curve plus this curve plus this curve, no, that curve, are three curves going in the same direction. This curve is the curve that goes in the opposite direction. And so I was able to create a curve network that makes that shape, okay, which is essentially the pool shape. Originally, this shape extended all the way up to the bottom side of where the coping would be on the pool. Okay? But I ended up doing a split, and I'll show you why in just a second. Okay? So the shape went all the way up under the coping. The coping exists as these three pieces. Those happen to match the same piece that I used over here to kind of edge my patio. So I just continued it off in this direction. The texture mapping on those three is exactly the same. So the last piece that I need, for sure, is something to represent the water. And rather than model anything complicated, I'd rather rely on a Vray material to do the water surface. I just need a rectangle that represents the surface level of the water. So I put the surface level of the water slightly down from the edge of the coping, and that represents the water. All I need to, in terms of material, is the water material. So if I go to my resources, we go to Vray materials. I think it's under water. Let me go to the Vray materials index and see here. There we go, water. Let's go show more water. Never mind. It's right here, water fountain. Okay, it's close enough to a pool. It's at that scale. So I went ahead and I downloaded that water. With that, if you already downloaded the big resource package, it should be listed there as well. So I went in and I loaded up the water fountain. There it is. And I applied that water fountain to this material on the surface. Okay? So now I have, if we look at it in rendered mode, right, I have the outside, I have the coping, I have a surface that represents the water surface of the pool. I have a shape there that represents the surface underneath the water. And what I chose to do with that was apply just a default gray material. Okay, I used gray. You could use white. Depends on the color of the pool that you want long term. And I could show you the difference in a test render. Okay, but it's just a default dark gray material. Now I wanted there to be a little tile line that goes around the pool. So I did a 6-inch offset of a big surface and split this pool bottom surface so that the top piece right there could have a different material applied to it. Okay, so it was just a split of the material, and I applied a porcelain blue to it, so it's a kind of a dark blue tile. Okay, so now I have the dark blue tile, I have the water, I have the bottom of the pool, I have the coping all ready to go. I'll go ahead and I'll save this, and then we'll jump over into my master site file. We'll make sure that it's updated. So let me go to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager, and I'm going to update it. Perfect. And then we'll go ahead and zoom in just on the pool itself so we can get a good look at what it looks like. Okay, so I have that. If we were to switch into my rendered mode here, we'd see that, yep, there's that blue. We've got surface there, but we've got lights of lights, and it's kind of hard to see. So we'll go ahead and do the test render and see what it looks like from there. And again, I do all of these test renders really small so that the render happens quickly. So it's finishing up here, but you see that we got the surface of the water, we get the tile line, we get the coping, and we get reflections, right, of whatever the surroundings are. This is probably not the best view because we're getting a reflection of the really ugly hillside. If I were to flip around, we'd get a little bit better view because we'd see off into the ocean. Yeah.
Can we do lights in the pool?
Yes.
Can we do lights in the pool?
Yes, we can do lights in the pool. Daytime, you're not going to really see the lights, but we'll get to doing it. Part of the reason I try to throw all this stuff together is so that you guys can see it all in practice. Okay? So if I spun around, we might have a better view of this, looking down on the pool itself. And I told you that I picked a darker gray for the bottom of the pool. That's going to make the pool water a little bit more blue, a little bit more sky reflected. I could, however, switch it to be a white bottom pool, and it would be a much lighter pool. I'll go ahead and do that just so you can see it as an option. So let me jump back to my retreat base. Let me select the surface here. I'll go to my materials, and I have a pool gray. Let's switch the pool gray to be a light gray or even a white. And then we'll save this. We'll switch back to the master site here. Remember, I have to update, so we'll go to Blocks, Block Manager, and we'll update it again. There we go. You can see that the pool color already got lighter. And then we'll go ahead and do another render, and you should be able to see what the lighter color bottom does. So the point is the bottom matters, what the color of the bottom is. So I'll let this finish up rendering so that you guys can see what it looks like. There we go. We're starting to see much lighter color pool. Okay, so depending on what your goal is in the pool, you can see that it makes a difference what color bottom you pick. All right, so I'll let that finish up so that you can see it. The purpose today is to create a good interior rendering to put those lights in. Obviously, as you go forward, you're going to end up getting off on tangents. Like today, I added a pool, right? That was an exterior thing, but at the same time, it might be relevant, right? You get lots of time to work in class, so make sure you get the lights in, make sure you do an interior rendering, but then keep working and keep adding detail. The more detail you have, the better your renderings are going to be. This class is very much about quality end result renderings, not so much about the design process. So while having a pool hanging off the side of this cliff might be a little bit unrealistic in practice, right? It's not a bad thing in terms of showing rendering skills and being able to do something. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so there you can see it much better. The light bottom pool has a different look as part of this. All right? Okay, so thanks for bearing with me. I think that a lot of people will find that water pool thing useful. If we wanted more ripples on the surface, we can adjust the bump map, or excuse me, the displacement map on the material, and we get more waves on the surface. So it depends on what your end goal is. All right?